Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. My name is Chris Enriquez, and this is a really exciting episode tonight. We usually talk to folks in bands. This time we are talking to a gentleman that I have known for close to 2 decades by the name of Tom Mullen. The reason why we bent the rules a little bit and we have Tom Mullen on the show is because he actually is an author now and has released a book called, it's not his first book, but it's the Anthology of Emo. The dreaded word, yes, I know. But, for those watching, the emo word really came about through the hardcore punk rock movement, talking about Rites of Spring and eventually Sunny Day Real Estate and Fugazi. It's really kind of turned into a total like 180 of whatever it was back then. I mean, a band like Dag Nasty that probably has more in common with Bad Religion, obviously, with Brian Baker being in the band, or Minor Threat, has now turned into a thing where you're looking at these goth bands with weird haircuts, which anyway, what's really cool, Season 2 Risk in the house, what up? What's really cool is that Tom has kind of positioned himself in a authoritative position. I think is really interesting because nobody really has, and there is a history that is way more kind of rich and interesting compared to these sort of guys that are wearing eyeliner and singing songs about their ex-girlfriends. Certainly not what was going on in Revolution Summer. Thank you, Century Media. I'm guessing that would be Mike Gitter. Let me know if that's you, Mike Gitter. But Tom started I guess we'll call it a brand called Washed Up Emo, which turned into eventually a podcast where he interviews bands like Mineral and Sunny Day Real Estate and Error Type 11, which is the owner of St. Vitus, Artie Shepherd's band, and Fugazi and Rites of Spring, and the list goes on. Planes Mistaken for Stars, Strike Anywhere, you name it. He's probably interviewed him. The Anthology of Emo #1 was a collection of interviews from his podcast, the Anthology of Emo Volume 2, which is out now, and we'll be pushing that and telling everybody where they can pick it up. That is the whole point of this episode, and we're going to get to know Tom and his thoughts on emo and why he decided to become a historian and an archivist. And what's up? Hopes Falls in the house. Gracer's in the house. I met him through my band that people called emo. We were called On the Might of Princes, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But the shining light is going to be on Tom for once tonight. So we're going to get Tom on the chat. I see that he is there. So, Tom, if you're watching, I'm sending you an invite right now. Look at that. There's Mike Gitter. I think that is Mike Gitter, who signed a lot of bands back in the day. Tom Mullen.
What's up?
How you doing?
Good, man.
Get a round of applause over here because the audience is virtual, so we can't hear them if they're clapping. But you got my.
They wouldn't be clapping regardless, so that's fine.
Well, the way this works, Tom. Now all of your followers are watching. Shout out to Hopes Fall, who is watching.
That's Josh. That's definitely Josh.
Awesome. Yeah.
Or it's Adam. It's Adam or Josh. Ryan's too cool for that.
Well, I saw Century Media's watching. I think that's probably Mike Gitter. So let us know.
Do you just want to talk about Century Media metal? Because I could do that. I love Century Media. I'm happy to do that.
Well, we could do that because what I do for a living, which some people watching may not. I work with record labels as well, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about you. If you are following Washed Up Emo and you're just tuning in and you missed my entire intro, I'll kind of repeat it. But this is the Age of Quarantine. St. Vitus Bar in Brooklyn, New York, started this show a couple months ago to get through this weird time that we're in, where we're talking to our favorite personalities in the music industry. And we are on, I don't even know what episode it is. It's on the 100-something. It's probably the 140s or something. And I've known Tom Mullen for a long time. I used to play in a band called On the Might of Princes that used to get the emo tag quite a bit. And Tom was working at TVT, and we came to know each other. It's been almost 2 decades, and I want to talk to our friend Tom about his journey to become the founder and host and author under the Washed Up Emo moniker. So welcome to the show, Tom. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Chris, man. Thanks for hanging.
Absolutely, brother. So before we get into your history, why don't you just tell me what it's been like getting through this crazy dark time, this pandemic?
It's been pretty crazy, and I think it reset a lot of things that I wanted to do personally. It sort of reset what's important, what's not, what family's important, what life's important about. And so I actually I ended up leaving New York right as like the CDC or the World Health Organization was like, this is a shit show. And I actually landed in Los Angeles. And so it was kind of a reset for me along with the rest of the world, but it's been really productive. Like I got to finish, volume 2 while I was in, these first couple months. I
Hold
got
it
to
up
go
for
through.
a sec. Hold up the book for a sec.
It's backwards because it's the fucking front camera, but I
It
should have
won't be
got,
the first time that we show it to everybody. So
I
there it
should
is.
have printed like a backwards one, but yeah, no, it's been really fun. Like I reprinted the first one, which wasn't out. It sold out in 6 months, 3 years ago. So I did a reprint and I fixed a bunch of typos.
Oh,
Um,
look at you. Okay.
Dude, so many typos. And then this one, and I did a lot. There's some more writing to it. So it's just, again, doing this yourself, like, with making your own records and doing those things, it's so more enjoyable. So I'm super psyched that this is out in the world and people can get it.
Absolutely. And, I want to get into that, but there's a big story that will lead us there. You do a lot of band interviews. That's what I usually do. You're the first guy on the show.
Right.
We've done a couple of artists that were like literally like visual artists, but this is the first time I'm talking to somebody that's not a member of a band. But much like that, you do have a story, and we can kind of look at your books in a way as your albums. So I want to get there and start from the beginning. You are in LA. I met you in New York, but you started in Vermont. How did Vermont play a role in your development as a music lover?
It's so crazy because there was a club, actually not even a club. It was a teen center called 242 Main. And
Yep.
the crazy thing about this place was Bernie Sanders' wife started it.
Are you
So
kidding me?
so when Bernie Sanders was mayor of Burlington, by the way, growing up, I thought everybody recycled and there were no billboards. So that's how I grew up, pretty sheltered. But we were 3 hours from Montreal, 7 hours to New York, 4.5 to Boston. It took a while for bands to come through. So 242 Main was this club that was a teen center. So this wasn't just punk rock shows. They had shit during the day for kids. They had after school program stuff. But then for the years that I was there in the 90s, it had this amazing scene. And folks that we probably both know were helping book it. But it was Bernie Sanders' wife. She was in Europe and
Wow.
saw all the European teen centers around Germany and Eastern Europe and obviously mainland Europe. And people, like, she took that back to Burlington. And so that's how I started to see shows. I didn't see a big band until I went to college. So it was all punk rock, emo, hardcore. And the best part, Chris, and you knew this, you go to the show and you only knew that second band by name, but you still stuck it out for 2 songs.
Right.
Instead
this is the
of
early days.
YouTube, you already wikied, you already knew their girlfriend, like you checked out how their haircut looked on alternative press.
Yeah.
Like, no, it was completely, and that was the best part about it. It was like, you just went to the show because you wanted to hang.
Absolutely. And, we should reference that we're talking about the early to mid 90s, probably, I'm guessing is what you're referencing.
Yeah, definitely mid 90s, like
Mid-90s.
94, 95.
Yeah. So you and I are coming up in the same exact era because I started at the same time. And, not to sort of go off on a tangent, but it is true. Like, and if we're talking about emo bands, I'll reference a few. Like when I saw Lifetime, I didn't go to see Lifetime. I didn't know who they were. They were just playing and I had nothing to do. So I wanted to see bands. And then there was Lifetime on stage. And I was like, who's that? That was great. I didn't know the name of the band until it was over. So that's a cool thing. And we should also make a shout out to the band Code 7, who I had a lot to do with booking shows at 242, who were a great band. Now, when you were...
Oh, you mean, no, you mean, do you mean Cancer Conspiracy? Or do you mean Drowning Man? Because Code 7, that was in North Carolina.
Oh, they had oh, you're right.
No, it's fine. No, I think you were missing up. See, so in Vermont, they had 242 Main. And then
Yeah.
when I went to North Carolina for school, they had a club that Big Dave ran called
Yes.
533 Uprising.
Yes, because I'm thinking about numbers. Thank you. Sorry about
Do you
that.
want to know a funny story about Artie?
Yeah, go
So,
for it.
um,
By the way, Artie, who owns St. Vitus,
the guy that owns St.
anybody
Vitus. So,
watching, and is in the lead singer of Error Type 11.
if I'm going to get my story right, and at this point it doesn't matter because it's 21 years old or 22 years old, but I remember they were on tour with Clutch, right?
I'm not sure. This would be.
I think they were on tour. I think they were on tour with Clutch, and I think they played, and then like, was it who else? There was two bands that were playing, and Artie's band played, but the other band didn't because they wanted to go to a strip club with another band in
Wow.
town and didn't play. So that's a horrible story told, but I remember going to the show and being bummed out that both bands didn't play. But that was definitely another DIY place run by Dave from Code 7, pretty much combined so many scenes together for that area. And again, I just want to, like, I didn't just start writing about emo. I didn't just become, I just said, I went to shows. I went 3 to 4 nights a week. And actually, my parents were worried in college. They actually said, stop going to shows. Did I ever tell you this?
No,
Yeah,
please, divulge.
they were like, you can't go to shows anymore. Because I was coming home with like T-shirts. I worked at the radio station, so it was free vinyl, free CDs. And I was like, no, I have to go see all these bands. And basically, the idea was, I said, I'm going to get the best grades I've ever gotten, and then you're going to leave me alone.
Right.
And the next semester, I got straight A's, and I went to 4 shows a week, and they left me alone.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing.
So I realized I could do the music business later. I feel like I could be up all night and then still go to class or still go to school or work and still be out, at night. So it was I was in very small bands. We're on an Emo Diaries comp. If anyone wants to find it, we're called
really?
Halifax
How
Code.
did you never tell me that?
It was early. It was like 2000 when I first moved to New York.
But that's when you and I met. What band was it?
It was called Halifax Code, and we were on Emo Diaries 7.
Yeah, I knew the band. I didn't know that you were in that band. I didn't know that was your band.
So
what did you play?
Guitar, baby. Come on. And also, my solo album is on Spotify, Turn the Knife. I used to play with Kevin Devine, Adam Rubenstein, Francis Garcia from Fourth Grade Nothing, like all these guys. So
I've known you for like 20 years, and maybe I'm sober now, so maybe I knew this when I was on drugs or something.
I've always been straight edge.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
But no, I feel like what's crazy is that like it was going to shows, it was being in a band for a little bit. I didn't tour, but that was the education. Like I have an initial records catalog. I mean,
yeah, the initial records catalog and they did
Very Distro.
Very Distro is a big one where you would basically like kind of, we'll dial it back a little bit for people watching that are on the younger side.
Who the fuck is this?
Yeah, because it's like, I want to mention 2 things because they relate to the whole purpose of what you do, which is that you are talking before about going to shows, and we mentioned bands like Code 7, and you mentioned a couple other ones like Drowning Man, and something that comes up often on your show, whether you're talking to Sunny Day Real Estate or Fugazi or Rites of Spring or many others, is that for anyone watching, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is a very important part of why you do what you do, is that something got lost, and people that know emo from MTV or whatever, it was hardcore. Emo was a part of hardcore music and punk rock music, straight up. If it was not for hardcore music, there would be no emo. There was no Minor Threat.
All those bands played with those bands. It wasn't like package metalcore tour. It was emo band, hardcore band, dude with an acoustic guitar, screamo, and then Sick of It All.
Yeah,
and that was the show.
Yeah, yeah.
I love those interconnections, and I think it got lost. And again, I started the website in 2007. I was at Equal Vision, and we were to work in Circus Survive. I was working Fall of Troy, Chiodos, all the Bear vs. Shark, all these great bands. And I would go online, literally people, I would go online and search for emo, and you couldn't find anything about Elliot. You couldn't find anything about On the Might of Princes. You couldn't. There was nothing.
And you
So
should
that's why I
mention that,
started the
yeah.
website. I was
Yeah,
like,
and
I want to
Elliot,
talk
yeah.
about the bands that no one talks about or no one has anywhere is mentioning. And that was the whole impetus to all of this.
And there's a growing theme in the bands you mentioned. Elliot was on a hardcore record label. They were on Revelation Records. The singer was in a hardcore band called Falling Forward. I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but I think your audience is probably interested in this stuff, and that's what's great about what you do. That's why I love what you do. Let's take it back a little bit, though, because I'm interested in how you came to discover underground music in the first place. Like, how did that even happen?
It was at 242 Main. It was friends in high school saying, come to this show. Come check out this metal band. I mean, I got into, first, it was Nirvana. I saw the music video on TV. I walked upstairs and I told my parents, I need a guitar immediately.
Okay.
And that's all I said. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know where we're going, but we're going somewhere to get it. It was that strong. And then I watched Headbangers Ball all the time, and I saw this band Helmet. And
Oh yeah.
I was blown away by how technical it was, how melodic it was, and it had a little piece of hardcore. And I was super into metal. So I started digging deeper. Again, talking about Century Media, Relapse, started getting into EVR, started getting into post-hardcore, Rev, Initial Records. And it just, I dove in. And so from those shows in Burlington, those smaller bands would come through. I literally did not see a big band. And I'm talking like big venue. The only venues I were at were like 150 cap. I didn't even know what a big show was until I went to college. And so those were the bands that were coming through. And that's how I kind of was like, well, this is it. Listening to college radio, going to small shows. This is music. So that's how I started to really dive into and find out about this word emo. And, you know, unfortunately still associated with it to this day.
Well, let's hold that thought for a second and get into that. Because
do we have commercials? I thought you had like a commercial.
Well,
I thought you were like Conan O'Brien right there for a minute.
Oh, hey,
Chris, my hair is so long. I haven't cut this since February 10th. So I'm on like, I think I'm going to go until it's a hockey hair mullet. I think that's what I'm going for.
Hey, for anybody watching, because I want to mention this episode is going to be archived and on YouTube, and you can't see the comments when we post
shit.
it.
So I need to mention that Chris Carrabba said my hair is too long.
Right, because my name's Chris, and right now we're looking on screen, and Chris Carrabba.
Sorry.
But I do, Chris, if you're watching, I just interviewed Sick of It All recently, and we talked about you because you wrote the foreword to their book. And that is a great kind of segue from what you were just talking about. And you just mentioned Sick of It All. Not a commercial break, but I did want to take a second to let everyone know, if you just tuned in, again, this will be up in its entirety, so you could start from the beginning. You're watching Age of Quarantine. This is Tom Mullen from Washed Up Emo. And I missed something in the beginning. If anyone has questions for Tom, and sometimes people have questions, there is a question mark box on the bottom of the screen, and maybe in about 15, 20 minutes, I'll check, whatever. I have a lot of questions myself, but so you're discovering stuff. You find out about Helmet. That's interesting to me because I watched a lot of Headbangers Ball, and I saw Helmet, but I also saw Quicksand, and they were post-hardcore because Walter, of course, was in Gorilla Biscuits and all that. And probably what struck that band Helmet to you in a similar way was that they had short hair. They looked like you and me. You know, they were just relatable people. And all these emo bands, so to speak, they were also kind of the same way. Street clothes, you know, until the late 2000s, then you start having makeup and weird shit.
But that early 90s era, like those, like the guys, the girl, like I loved that, you know, obviously there was a look, but also I loved that it was those tours of random bands and they were all kind of intermixing, and it felt like a community. It felt like there was connections. And I remember I was in spring break in Florida, and I dragged a bunch of friends to go to FSU to go watch Promise Ring and Jimmy Eat World open. Oh, wow. And I remember they were so bummed out because they couldn't go make out with their girlfriends. I made them go to the show. And it was Promise Ring. This was before. Okay. Yeah. And so it was $3 because it was a campus show. And we ended up, you know, going show. And now they tell everybody, Tom brought us, to Jimmy Eat World. And I loved being at these early shows because I ended up meeting a bunch of them because of the college radio station. Chris, you were not. Chris Carrabba said he was at that show. Holy shit.
And to the guy really quick above him, Absolution X, that Lifetime show was with Bouncing Souls and Screw 32, but those bands are great too. Damnation
Right.
and Walleye. Yeah.
Right. I love like those again. I loved going back and forth between. I mean, I did my radio show was hardcore, emo, and metal. Like that's what it was. Right. But it was something where I started to see these connections, and I started to see and go to these bands. And the way I met them is I would get radio IDs. That was the excuse.
Oh, yeah. For everybody, you're talking like, hey, this is Jim Atkins from Jimmy Eat World, and you're listening to whatever, that's,
yeah.
Yeah.
And two things. One, I had horrible handwriting, and so they couldn't read what I wrote. And so I have all these outtakes of IDs of all these bands that can't read my writing. And so I've actually saved it. I have an archive of all of these videos or all this audio of those IDs, but that's how I started to meet them. And years later, when I would go see them again, or a band would come through, they would remember. And I think, again, it wasn't like, oh, this scene's happening, I'm going to go to the show. It was more organic. And I think that's the part that I loved, that it was, it wasn't this, I just showed up when it was going hot. It's been ignored for many, many years, and then had a hot period. But that back then was so much fun to just bug them for an ID. And, you giggle after and you're like, I just got an ID. Technically, Jess Brazil was touring with Promise Ring. I didn't know what Blake Schwarzenbach looked like. So I'm at the show. It's dark lighting. And I literally asked Blake where Promise Ring was. And my friend hit me after, and he's like, did you realize you were just asking Blake? And I was like, no clue.
Wow, that's so
Welcome
funny.
to 98.
Well, I mean, the cool thing, and I want to get into, we got to talk about Washed Up Emo. That's the whole point of this and the book. We'll get there. But leading to that, one of the things that I'm jumping around a little bit that you are doing that's really interesting and is discussed particularly on the podcast interviews that you did with Ian MacKaye and Guy Picciotto, of course, of Minor Threat, Fugazi, Rites of Spring, Embrace, yada yada, is archiving. I really like what you're doing because you're kind of going back and archiving in a different way by kind of explaining a history that's gotten lost. And then Ian MacKaye is an important archivist, which people should call him that more than a record label owner or a singer or musician.
Right.
He's an archivist. This guy, I guess the whole story of Rites of Spring, who were, kind of the antithesis or the, progenitors, if that's the right word to use, for what became emo accidentally. Rites of Spring, I believe, in the interview you did with Guy, he said, well, yeah, we weren't thinking about archiving anything or making a demo. We were going to break up, and Ian was like, no, you should at least make a cassette tape, and there you have it. He was an archivist. I just want to make that point. But where did you first, hear the word emo? Because you left off on seeing Helmet and liking Helmet and Nirvana.
Oh, yeah. So Jody Stone, who's a friend from home that you knew, that she lived on Long Island for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Jody I went to school with, and we're at the show, and she's like, Tom, you got to check out this band, Get Up Kids. I was like, oh, cool. I'll check out the EP. And it was awesome. And I just, again, Doghouse, Initial, just started diving in. And
these are old record labels, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just got super into things. And then, again, I had a zine. And so I wanted to interview these bands. I interviewed Snapcase in high school. And actually, I just found scans of an interview that I did with Karate. Now, the crazy thing about this is it was their first ever interview. And I had no idea. I just emailed them because I heard their 7-inch. And I was like, hey, I want to interview you guys. I did their first ever interview. And so I was slowly doing these things by accident, and I saved stuff. And so I was sort of, as I was learning about a band, I would save, the flyer, or save the booklet, or save the catalog. And these things started to make more sense later. It's kind of like, again, and I will flash forward, it hit me when I had some friends in my family pass away, and you can't talk to them anymore. And you can't say hi, you can't get that story again. And it was
Yes.
really important to me to get these artists' voices, because if you looked at podcasting in 2011 when I started, or even the website back then, their words and their voice were not out there. So it was my idea to bring up these voices that people don't talk about, because there's plenty of people covering the bands that we're all probably thinking about in the mid 2000s. When someone
Sure.
laughs, when you hear the word, everyone's that they're fine. They're fine. They don't need any help. But maybe these other bands needed that help. And that's always been my hope and my dream, is that one day people don't think the word is a laugh. It's more of a, that's, oh yeah, there's a lot of bands. There's this era and this. So it's a lot of different, but it's important to me, because there's not, speaking of the book, like there's an interview with John Bunch, ever interview.
Right.
I
John
didn't
Bunch
plan it.
from Sensefield, who later on was in Further Seems Forever. Yeah.
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 And
One of the best singers of the genre, if we can call it that, yeah.
And to your point earlier about obsessed with emo, hardcore, and metal, he sang for all of those kind of bands.
Oh, yeah. And that's another one. Sensefield was on Revelation, a hardcore label, and he was in, help me out here. What was the name of his punk rock band? Reason to Believe?
Yeah, Reason to Believe. Fantastic.
Reason to Believe. Yeah.
So, but so like that's the, I didn't plan that, but I'm happy that I did, because I was able to then get his voice, get his story out there. And there's kids that will hit me up and say, hey, I heard about John Bunch. I want to go listen to him.
Yep.
I don't know if there's a better feeling. I really don't. To know that story continues.
I mean, yeah, because he passed away tragically. We just had Chris Evanson from Sensefield on the show. I got to say really quick, I've experienced death. Who hasn't? I didn't really kind of like put two and two together in terms of like how it relates to this, but I just interviewed who would be probably the greatest thrash frontman of the past 20 years, Riley Gale from Power Trip, a couple months ago, and I had no idea that he would pass away a couple weeks ago.
You don't know that. That's what's so crazy. So that's why I mean, like, being in the moment. Like, I'm like, Chris Carrabba is chatting with us while I'm chatting with you. I'm gonna remember that forever. I love always.
We got Hope's Fall and Garrison,
right. So it's like I'm living in the moment, and like there's no time to wait. Like, I want to do more books. I want to do more podcasts. I want to do this. And then hopefully someone after me picks it up and they're archiving it, or they're doing again in what's happening in their scene. Cause we're not cool anymore.
Yeah.
There's a kid in some city in, California doing way cooler stuff than we are. And I can't wait to listen to it. So so your idea of like, you don't know, like, I don't know if tomorrow's it. So we might as well, like, that's why I can't watch Netflix. I can't sit through a movie. No, I can't, because I'm constantly being like, I could read this initial records catalog, and I circled Converge, Petitioning the Empty Sky. Like, like, why did I do that? Like, that's what I'm thinking about.
Right. It's so funny because, you bring up stuff like that, like Converge, and like, to me back then, they were like, it'd be like, oh, there's the metal part, the emo part, but it was still like kind of different than what we say today about these like younger bands, when it's like very kind of cut and paste. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, I was curious how you found out about emo and the word and all that. But you also, we got to talk about your life in the music industry, because I met you about 20 years ago. Speaking of being old, and I was in a band called On the Might of Princes. You were a record executive at TVT Records. As you mentioned, you kind of evolved and ended up at different places. Equal Vision, you ended up at a major. How did you get into the music industry proper, and what is it that you have been doing this whole time?
So it's crazy again. It started with hardcore. I was obsessed with this band Shift. They were on Equal Vision Records, and I just loved them. And I loved them in high school. And I remember in college, and again, this will date myself, is that I remember being like, I want to make a website for a band. I want to make a fan site. And I remember saying like, I should make one for Shift. And it was on a thing called GeoCities.
Right.
And I made it was geocities.com/Hollywood/8237. If
Yes,
anyone's going
Shift
there
was
right
amazing,
now.
by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I made the website. Did I know them? No. Did I have anything of importance? No. I just made 3 shitty pages on, GeoCities for them. Samantha Maloney, the drummer, her grandparents had an email and found the website and then told Samantha.
Wow.
Samantha did not have an email. And there's a reason why I'm telling the story. Samantha didn't have email. She emailed me and saying, thank you so much. Why don't you come to the next show at 930 Club? We're touring with blah, blah, blah. We'll come up and, hang out or wherever. So I met her, met the band, ended up being friendly. She ended up drumming for Hole. We went to go see, and Motley Crue. We went to go. She invited us to all these shows. So we became friends. 2 or 3 months before I'm graduating, I said, Sam, I need a job in the music biz. I've interned. I've worked at the radio station. She's like, let me call my friend that just left to start his own company called Cornerstone. And she called him. She was on Columbia, and he used to be at Columbia. And this guy, John Cohen, started a new company called Cornerstone.
Is that part of Fader too?
Fader wasn't part of it yet.
Okay, it's early.
Yeah, it was early days. And so he basically, she got me an interview. And what's crazy is, and this is about opportunity. So I made a website. No one told me. I met the band. This next part was Cornerstone offered the least amount of money and no health insurance out of the 3 offers I got. It was 2 other labels. Actually, Nuclear Blast. I had an opportunity to work at Nuclear Blast.
Were you a metal guy too, a little bit?
I ran the metal programming at the radio station for 3.5 years.
Oh, so you're a side by side, like you love metal.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff too. Yeah.
Oh hell yeah! I definitely have seen Death, Strapping Young Lad, Neurosis, like all like done deal. Like
And can we just point one thing out too that because I interviewed William Goldsmith from Sunny Day also. Just a quick tangent was that everyone that talks about Sunny Day Real Estate being like the godfathers of emo, depending on who you talk to, their biggest influence at the time was Neurosis. That Diary was incredibly influenced by Neurosis, which is so weird to think about. If you go back and listen to early Neurosis, it makes sense. Anyway, continue.
So I had 3 offers, and I took the job that paid the least amount of money, and I knew it was the best opportunity. And I ended up meeting people in this digital row that we were on. We were the digital team. And one of the first projects I worked with the band called Hybrid Theory. Linkin Park was not called Hybrid Theory yet. Their album title was their old band name. That was my first project I ever had.
It was Linkin Park.
It was Linkin Park, but they were called Hybrid Theory at the time. So super fun. But again, I took these opportunities, and each time someone, when I did something without someone telling me, it ended up leading me to my next job. So that's how I've survived for 20 years in the music business, is each time doing something no one told me to do Washed Up Emo, and it's led to us talking and thousands of other things, getting to meet Chris Carrabba or whoever else. But that's the part that I think a lot of people miss, is like, there's work. You need to do something outside of what you're told.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what you and I do professionally, side by side, or similar
professionally.
journeys.
Let's
Yeah, professionally. Well, I guess it's the idea.
No, I know what you mean.
You get paid, to promote.
Totally.
Bands. And
it's ridiculous.
I don't want to like speak out of line in terms of like, I have to be careful about what I say regarding what I do too. But let's just say like that I don't necessarily have a choice in the bands that I promote. It's my job, just like it's your job. You get assigned something, and then once in a while you get some kind of crossover, and you're like really excited. It's like, I'm so stoked. I'm sure that happened to you at like Equal Vision, probably more so than like at a major label. I'm gonna skip through some of my questions because I have so many, and we're already half past.
Can I tell a funny story about Anthony Green?
Oh yeah, Anthony Green from Circa. Go for it.
From Circa Survive.
I'll tell one after that too.
Well, I was just gonna say they were on Equal Vision. We worked a couple records, and then they went to Atlantic, and I was in New York, and I was like, let me go to the show. And I remember having another ticket, and I gave a miracle ticket to someone in the line waiting to get in. And I remember getting in, and I was standing with all these people from Atlantic, and I was like, guys, I worked the first 2 records, and too cool for school. There was a couple of people that weren't, but like so cool, like just like I was like, whatever, like this band's awesome. I'm so glad you signed them. I am not joking. I am dead serious. During the show, I just happened to be in the back, and somehow the strobe light or some light ended up shining on me, and Anthony happened to look up at the same time, and in his high-pitched voice, in between a song, squealed, "Hi, Tom," like at the top of his lungs. And I was laughing so hard because it was like, and all the Atlantic people were like, oh, like in between a song, Anthony's gonna, yell your name. So I just think those moments, working with smaller bands, working with DIY, working with those are what my best memories, my favorite memories of, this scene and working with music.
Yeah, the cool crossover there is great. I'm going to skip my story because this is more about you, and I have so much I want to get into. Because I want to know when did you start Washed Up Emo, and what was the catalyst to do that? I feel like you kind of touched on that already, but let's maybe get to that a little more formally.
So we're at Bamboozle. We've got vinyl. Kids are picking it up like it's a calendar. Something was wrong. Like something. This is there's something that's disconnecting with the internet and the world. Something's not connecting with what I liked and now what emo is. And so in 2007, in October, I was like, I'm angry. I'm just going to start a website and talking about bands that I love. And that's all I did. And it was so angry. If you guys think I'm angry now, like that was just 10 times worse. And that's all I did.
Picture you angry. Yeah.
No, so angry. And just like, this is bullshit. Like, no one talks about this band. Why are you not? And it slowly evolved into, the DJ night, the podcast. And it just started sort of snowballing, being like, wait a minute. Like, I think I'm starting to build up this group of people. And there are a lot of people early on that said yes to the podcast. Zach from May, Jim from Jimmy Eat World did it really early on. And
what started first, though? What was the first thing that
Chuck from Deep Elm.
Because Washed Up Emo was
the website.
It evolved. So it was a website first, and maybe what was the initial thing before?
Blogspot. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was like me just talking about bands, spouting off news. I mean, it was pretty archaic. And then
it was kind of like your own live journal about bands.
Exactly.
And then it became a podcast.
In like 2011, actually the DJ night started before. In February 2011, we started the DJ night in New York City at Idle Hands, and that was the first consistent one. And we ended up doing it for 9 years up until March of 2020. We've been doing it every single month, so that was crazy. But the podcast started October 2011, and that was, again, no one's interviewing my heroes. No one's interviewing these bands on podcasts. Let me go talk to them. And I had the worst setup. I had no editing skills. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to.
And you ran a radio station, so you had a little bit of experience, I guess.
A little bit.
What are some of the notable bands or artists that DJ'd emo nights? Is it, I guess it was happening at Elsewhere in Brooklyn right before the pandemic. That's where it was last taking place. Who are some of the artists that have DJ'd? And then maybe talk about some of the more notable interviews that you got started with when the podcast started.
Yeah, I would say that for the DJ night, it was so much fun because bands just came by. Yeah. They didn't get paid. They just wanted to show up to hang, to play some music and drink for free. That was our deal. So to have, the guys from Braid or, the guys from Say Anything stop by, or Saves the Day, or so many friends and people that we knew helped, build this up. And it was so much fun. It was so DIY. We didn't have a publicist. We just put on a night once a month and said, come and hang with us for free. And so that was been the, super amazing. And to do it consistently for 9 years is nuts. And then the podcast was really fun because all these people that I didn't realize listened.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like, hey, I wanted you on the podcast. And like, oh yeah, I've listened to like 5 episodes. Sure, I'll come on. And I'm like, whoa. And
Yeah.
it sort of kept snowballing where I got the guys from Promise Ring. So then other people would look at the list and who have you had on? And then they'd see them and be like, okay. And that even happened today. I've been trying to interview somebody for a long time and they looked through and they're like, well, you had Guy on, so
Yeah. Once you have Guy or Ian,
come on,
you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
come
I
on.
actually am. We're trying to get to Ian and Guy, so I might bother you, but I have Brian.
Dude,
Yeah.
Ian's was insane. It took me, I don't know how many emails, and I had to have a 45-minute interview with him asking me why I wanted to interview him.
Oh, dude, I mean,
it was amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, they do a lot of the back check. Like, I don't want to divulge too much.
Who is this guy?
The Evens were supposed to play at Vitus in that fight. I don't want to speak out of line, but I think Ian had a similar conversation with my best friend and co-host David about like, why do you want us there? Like,
Right.
We're trying to get there, but I will drop this because I think it's appropriate. But in 1 week, I have Brian Baker, and that's not announced. So I'm just letting everyone know Brian Baker from Dag Nasty on the show. But so it sounds like the podcast and the whole idea of the show of the entity Washed Up Emo was pretty well received by the general public. Is that safe to say?
I think so. I think there were a lot of people that didn't understand the word. I mean, again, just today, someone was like, why is it washed up? I don't like the word emo. And it was just a joke. It was that my knees hurt a little more. I'm taking a few more medications than I was in my 20s. We're a little older. So it just seemed like it was a funny thing to say. And I wish I could have changed it, because I think if I had it say punk, if I had it say something else, I think a lot more opportunities would have come my way, if I'm completely honest. From radio things to sponsorships to other things, I think if it didn't have that name, it would have had a bigger life, like Turned Out Punk or others like that. And so I think about that a lot, and I try not to, dwell on it, but I really feel that the word, I'm gonna die on this hill. Like, the word should not be laughed at. The word is serious. That's why the book looks like a history book. Like, it's not
the word emo.
Yeah, there's no is there any neon or white belts on this? There's not. So I'm okay with that era. I loved emo in the 90s. I found out about Rites of Spring after and Doug, and then Jimmy Eat World and Dashboard and all these bands, and then it got Derivative, and then the Revival. And I remember getting an email from these kids from Russia, and it was 2009, and they said, Tom, we love Mineral. And in 2009, that was like emailing me Greek. Like, what do you mean? How did you find out about them? How do you like them? And how did you even realize that they were that? Because of all the noise that was happening around the world.
You're exposing bands that they didn't know about. In other words, in other countries, like
I didn't even know if I did it. They just knew to find me because I was talking about it as well. Maybe they found it out through a friend, but I get what you're saying. But that was the thing where I was like, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm going to at least hope that people that I talk to and say the word emo, they don't laugh, they don't giggle, and they maybe take it a little more seriously, because so many people in bands shy away from the word, did not want to be on the podcast, took years for me to get them on. And I don't think there's another genre like that. Ska's even more respected. I mean, Pitchfork's probably going to do a best of ska pretty soon. So,
well, I guess, you have to look at it from the perspective of like I love what you're doing because I think that it was so important to do precisely for the reason that you just offered, which is that, the genre, what was considered emo had, and somebody just commented, had basically become this like kind of embarrassing thing, which is kind of almost like I don't think that any of the bands back then like waved a flag that said we're an emo band in the way that Sick of It All got on stage and said we're hardcore, or
Right.
like Bad Religion, like we're punk. No one was like, hey, what's up? We're Jimmy Eat World, we're emo. That was not a thing. But there was still a story to be told, and you brought that out. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel do you consider yourself an archivist slash historian in the sense where you try to tell the story of this thing called emo in the sense where you'll even get into like a third wave or a fourth wave and a fifth wave, regardless of whether you like the bands or not, or are you kind of sticking to like what you personally feel is important to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I actually get shit for that. People think I'm not going to talk about, the bands that get all the press and that were on the cover of the magazines that looked cute. I love a lot of those bands. Actually,
Really?
Taking Back Sunday, Adam went in high school when I was going to 533.
Right.
So
we talked
we
about
would
that.
see.
And I've known those guys forever, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love so much of that stuff. And at Equal Vision, we were, we're touring with those bands. So no problem. I'm just saying it's gotten enough coverage. There's enough AP covers for those things to reach the moon. Let's focus on a newer band. And that's the thing I love to do on the website. I love to mention new bands like Foxing, to be able to be like, this band is awesome. Go check them out.
That's what I was getting at. Like the
Right.
newer,
Like I want to
young
introduce
guys.
people to new shit. And I was doing this in college. I had high school kids listening to my radio show, and I would tell them about Newfound Glory, Chad from Shai Halud's new band. And I love doing that. So I think I'm innately wanting to share music and share this world and this scene, and for them to understand the pieces of it. And as you notice, and people maybe that listen to the podcast, I cut myself out of 90% of it. There's times where I'll have a 2-minute story for that person that I'm telling you, but I'm cutting it out and I'm only letting them talk. And
right.
it's right now I'm talking, but because you interviewed me, but for the most part, you don't need to hear me. You don't need to hear my stories. I want you to hear their voice. And that's the whole, I hope that this is the music industry thing. People get excited that they work with Bob Dylan. They work with, Cardi B or something. And they get this like ego that I'm doing it.
Oh,
no,
yeah, I fucking hate that shit. It drives
you
me
don't
nuts.
do anything. No one's going to remember you. And no one's going to remember you. So I hope that people remember Sunny Day Real Estate, Elliot, John Bunch, Chris Conley. I hope I'm not even on the wiki page. I don't even want to be. I just hope
absolutely.
that
That's
this is what it is. And I'm getting like literally emotional about it, because I don't care. I hope that no one remembers Tom Mullen, and if they accidentally in 1,000 years throw on How It Feels to Be Something On by Sunny Day Real Estate, then I will be clapping in my grave.
People will remember you because of your books and because I have you on this, and I'm sure that there's so much we could talk forever.
Sorry, there's a comment in the chat, someone asking to look up the true emo band like the Smiths. If you want to have some fun, check out isthisbandemo.com, and you guys can look up all your favorite bands and find out if they're emo or not.
And that's another really cool thing. Okay, in the 12 minutes that we have, I want to cover so much more, and I'm going to try to kind of bang through it. But let's talk about, so really quick, as a person that's put themselves in the sort of like, I don't know if you're comfortable with this word, but let's not say an authority, but more, we'll stick to archivist and historian and author or what have you. Have you gotten contacted by like media outlets as a credible source to discuss the genre? Has that become a thing?
Yeah, it's been super fun. Like, getting called from, either it's a museum or it's a website, or I forget.
Yeah.
It's on my website, my personal website. I'm trying to remember. But like bands, I'll tell you a story. Mineral, when they were reuniting, knew I had video and said, "Do you have video of this song? We forgot how to play it." And so it's, from extreme bands to press outlets to asking for a comment about a thing, like I'm happy to, but I would rather, defer to a band. But yeah, it's been really fun to be considered either a curator or a historian. And there are people younger than me that are a lot smarter, that know so much more than me. I just want to be like a catalyst, someone to help them find what I get so excited about.
Yep, like a gatekeeper, so to speak, a messenger. That's awesome, man. And that just shows that like what you're doing is working. If you're getting contacted by people at museums and in bands for things of that nature. And I obviously have you in my upcoming movie, not to plug what I'm doing, but we'll eventually have it released. And we wanted you to talk about the genre. And then the other thing I'm going to get to here is okay, I already asked you that, but the idea of the Anthology of Emo Volume 1, how did that come about? We'll get into the book. And how did you decide which interviews to use and which ones are they? Because you mentioned it's transcribed interviews that you use, right, as chapters in the book.
So it goes back to my archiving life. And there's a Hopesfall conversation in this chat right now. And if you guys want to know, I booked their first show in North Carolina at Parents Weekend. So if you want to know what freshman parents thinking about the school we were going to and hearing Hopesfall, pretty funny sight. So back to your question, the idea was, let's recycle something that I am doing that someone else can consume in a different way. Some people listen to vinyl, some people watch TV, some people watch Netflix, some people watch YouTube. Let me put this in a different medium. And I had a friend that said, hey, do you want to help? Or if you ever do a book, I want to help you design it. And so it really started where I was like, well, I have these amazing interviews. Why don't we turn it into a book? And so literally that's all this is. It's the book, the podcast as a book. And I didn't know the reaction. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I tried to organize it like a radio show. I tried to have the hits. We've got Chris Carrabba. We got Mike Kinsella. We got Matt Pryor. But I wanted people to have
the bands that they're in for people watching.
Chris Carrabba from Dashboard, Kinsella from American Football, Captain Jazz, Matt Pryor from the Get Up Kids, New Amsterdams, and Chris Simpson from Mineral. But I also wanted to have like Eric Richter from Christie Front Drive. I wanted to have Raina Maria. I wanted to have Chris Leo from the Van Pelt. So it's just, I wanted to have almost like you're listening to the radio show, you're listening to an hour, and I wanted to have that. So someone picking it up for Eric Richter is going to then maybe learn about someone else, or someone that just knows Chris Carrabba, and that's totally fine because Chris will school you on all this himself. But if you read his, you're going to learn about other ones, and that's the idea. So there's no order, there's no theme. It's just what would be 10 really good stories to be in these books. What would it be like?
Tom, was it easy to get published? What is it published by? And
I published it. I paid the money.
Okay. All DIY, punk rock style.
All DIY, guys. I had a friend make it, so I give him a percentage. And then Polyvinyl, people think I'm signed or something. I'm just using their warehouse for them to ship it, as any band would. So they take a percentage. So you can do this. Make a book. You can self-publish it. Deal with someone. I knew Polyvinyl forever. Matt Lunsford and those guys are amazing. They're just shipping it out for me, and I'm doing all the promo. And so a book is not hard. And so it's just expensive. It's expensive to make. But what's cool is I made this in the US, and it's run by a company owned by women in Michigan. And so I kind of loved that I didn't go overseas. I tried to do something local. And so anyway, it was super fun.
I love that. And
sold out in 6 months.
So that's
I was like,
next question. It's sold out in 6 months.
Crazy.
And okay, and that leads me to volume 2, which now that answers my question. It makes sense. You were like, this did great. I'm going to do it again. And now is that going to be repressed, by the way, that volume 1, or is it kind of like a limited edition? It's gone. You had to get it while you could kind of vibe.
Back then it was. Back then I was like, I'm just going to print this amount and we're going to be done. And then I'm going to work on the second one. Like, I don't have time to, I had a job. That's the other thing. People think Washed Up Emo is my job. Like, I have a full-time job that I did all day. This is my love. I'm done work. I'm going to watch the Celtics and edit a podcast or edit a book or, work with someone on a reissue. So the idea for 2 was, let me see if I can do this again. Let me see if I can get 10, interviews together that fit and see if people like it again. And it was really, really awesome to announce it a couple months ago and have people be stoked on it. So again, I want this in a library. I want this to someone that's never listened to the podcast. I want someone to pick this up.
That's been on sale in some stores, right? Am I making this up? Can you buy it at Urban Outfitters, or did I just make that up?
The previous one you could. And it was at like Amoeba and a bunch of places. So it actually starts getting into stores in hopefully October. So if your store wants to order it, you just need to reach out, anthologyofemo.com. You can go to, there's a wholesale at Washed Up Emo, and you can get some forms on how to buy like multiple copies. But I don't know, man. It is so much fun to like just make something and put it out in the world, and people get stoked on it. Like, I don't know. There's no other. It's like putting out a record.
No, it is the same thing. And you answered my question about where people could buy it. In the last 4 minutes that we have before Instagram kicks us off, I just want to make sure that we properly address Volume 2, which is really what we want to talk about and promote. Who made it? Because I surely hope that the Ian MacKay episode and William Goldsmith and all that, but if not, then maybe there's Volume 3. But who made it into Volume 2?
So Jim Atkins from Jimmy Eat World, because he was one of the first people that like said he listened to it, and he was really sweet, and I'm an uber nerd for that band. So you're in.
I know, it's your favorite, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
John Bunch from Sensefield, Reason to Believe,
Very
Lucky
important,
Cigars.
Very important interview.
And then Chris Conley from Saves the Day, who got to actually booked a show of theirs in college at my pizza restaurant. So that was fun. Jeff Farina from Karate. Tim Casher from Cursive, which I found out last week lives down the street from my uncle. So found out, so ran. I was like, that's your address? Because I think you walked by my uncle's house. Anyway, Trevor Kelly, who worked at Alternative Press magazine back in the day. Connor from Foxing, one of the new school guys. Bob Nana from Braid. Travis Shettle from Piebald, and then Leslie Simon from Alternative Press, and also an author. Trevor and Leslie did a couple early emo books called Everything Hurts, and then Leslie. So they are OG. They are, I look up to them.
Way to give respect to these people that,
There's so many. I am a hack. Like I'm doing this in my free time, and these guys were professionals, and so I really hope that people, they pick it up for Connor Murphy, and then they learn about somebody else.
Tom, I'm going to cut you off because I'm going to do 3 things really quick.
What do you have to do for promo?
2 minutes. No, this is about you. I'm about to put you on the spot and ask you for some lists. And I'm going to say goodbye and thank you first, because Instagram is going to kick us off without any warning. So if anything, I might rush you and count you from 10 to 1 so you could rush your answer.
Let's go.
My question for you, top 10 emo albums and why? Hurry up.
Sunny Day Real Estate, How It Feels to Be Something On, Get Up Kids, Dashboard, the first record, Texas is the Reason, Jimmy Eat World, Clarity, Mineral, what else? Promise Ring.
Okay.
What else? 2 more?
No, that's 7. You have 3 more.
Fucking hell. Karate for sure. Oh, Through Being Cool for sure. And what's the other one I fucking love? Chrissy Front Drive.
There you go.
Their discography. There you go.
Okay, we're gonna get kicked off soon. If you could, who's on the bucket list at this point that you want to interview that you haven't interviewed already? Just
Enoch.
Jeremy Enoch.
Yeah, he won't do it because of the name, and that's totally fine. I get it, but that's okay. That's his choice. One day he'll do it.
Okay. All right.
Oh, so 6 Going on 7. I'm interviewing them next week. There's a comment putting that band in there. 6 Going on 7. I'm interviewing Josh next week.
Great fucking band. And fucking would love to talk shop with you on your show at some point. But yeah, Volume 1 and Volume 2, Anthology of Emo, Washed Up Emo. is this band Emo. There's a lot of shit that this
Chris,
guy
feel
does.
better. Chris Carrabba, feel better. And
Yes.
Chris Enriquez, feel better.
And you can listen to the Washed Up Emo podcast on Spotify, on all streaming, Apple, all that shit. So if you're watching and you haven't checked it out yet, and you follow St. Vitus and you're not one of Tom's existing fans already watching, then get off your ass and honestly start with Guy Picciotto, because that is just a great launching pad for everything you need to know about a genre that you probably listen to and know nothing about. So I know that sounds pretentious, but whatever. Fuck it. That's
Chris, I can't wait to see you in person.
Thank you so much, man, and thank you for doing this. And I have nothing but love for you as a person and what you do. I think it's great, and I love that you stepped up when no one else did, to just be like, check it out. These are really cool things that have a rich history that you should know about. So I know a lot of people watching are in bands that I feel like owe a lot to you for kind of standing up and being a figurehead in that way. So thank you very much for that.
Hell yeah, man. Chris, I'll see you soon. I can't wait for that doc to come out.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, stay safe out there, and you keep that PMA.
I'm trying.
We all got.
Yo, tell Artie I said what's up. Tell Skirty all those jerks. All right.
Fuck yeah, man.
All right. Later.
See you. Bye. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch that whole episode, it'll be on the St. Vitus IGTV in just a matter of minutes, and all of these will be on YouTube at some point. So thanks. Vote in November. Don't be a dick. Stay safe. Wash your hands and wear a goddamn mask. Peace out.